Right then. 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
No warning. I'm just talking about square heads and you just give me that. Ladies and gents, episode 42, 2PT's One Podcast with your host, Mike and Myles. And today's is going to be, can we say controversial?
I don't think it's controversial.
Yeah. Carbohydrates, carbs, the devil's macro.
The devil's macro, the one that usually gets the biggest hit out of all three of them.
Because people think that carbs makes you fat.
Yes.
And carbs gives you energy. And carbs gives you the option and energy to not be fat.
Yeah. Well,
pizza is your friend.
All three of them make you fat if you eat bloody tons of it.
Yeah, well, I made that an analogy as healthy food. In terms of you can eat healthy food in an excessive amount. Yeah, great, you get a load of vitamins and minerals. However, that will still make you fat. Anything in a surplus will make you fat. No, but carbohydrates, a little bit more logistics and discussion. Obviously, me and Myles are not dietitians. We are personal trainers. I am a nutrition coach.
I've just done nutrition courses and I like sports, so I like to learn.
And I have a book.
He has a book. Oh, he has so much knowledge. He has a book. I hope it has pictures. He's actually checking.
I think it has graphs and tables.
It has graphs. Words, pictures, and graphs. Oh, look at that. That is one sexy graph, that.
But no, we're not here to show you my graphs. That could be an analogy.
Mike, do you want to hear a joke just to start things off?
What is it?
What is a nutritionist favorite chart?
A pie chart.
A pie chart.
Yeah, yours are clean. Mine are not clean.
I'm just gonna hear all the subscribe buttons.
Yeah.
If you want more entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, come this way.
If you want more dad jokes, let me know, and I will come at you with my dad jokes.
Oh God.
We might go from U to PG if I say something.
Let's keep it PG.
Yeah. Oh, can we go PG? No. Carbohydrates. So obviously, protein, carbs, and fats are our three main macros. Carbs you can break down to, how would you break them down? Slow and fast digestion. Because to make it simple anyway.
Yeah, slow and fast digestion. Carbohydrates, simple or complex.
Yeah. Yeah. You can obviously go a lot more precise in terms of my mind's gone blank.
Yeah.
This is what happens when I wake up at 5 a.m. There's obviously different levels of what the carbs can do for you, but obviously as a general blanket statement, you can say simple and complex. Simple and complex you can look at in terms of how the carb is taken in by the body. Something simple, easy to break down, easy to digest, easy to utilize.
Food digestions. We're talking about sweets, chocolate, anything that's like simple, quite high in sugar. Not all with high sugars. And then you got your complex, which is going to be mainly foods that have potentially quite a bit of fiber in them. Your fruit, your veg, things that are on the lower scale of the glycemic. I can never say that word right. Glycemic. I've said it wrong again. Mike, put me in there. There we go.
Yeah. I always think of it in terms of when you were a kid and they say you have too much sugar and you have a sugar rush.
Oh, the blue skills.
Yeah, energy rush.
Yeah.
The other way I think about it is when you're watching TV and you'll see like, it's not McVitie's. What's the other one? Like the breakfast bars.
Oh, I know what you're on about now. They have the biscuit bars, don't they?
Yeah. But obviously, you can have a thing.
Belvita.
Yes, Belvita.
That's it.
And the structure of a Belvita will be based on complex carbs. Harder to break down by the body. That means that they take longer to be absorbed and utilized which is a slow release, which is like, this is why this is why it can help you all morning and keep you full all morning, because it's a slow release of energy as opposed to something that's going to digest quickly and give it you all in one go. And that's your main subtle difference between the two in terms of how it can help you. Now, I think most people will look at food and just be like, well, that's a carb and that's a carb. And I think it's not until you actually get into the training principles and look at it in terms of, right, pre and post food, I'm not going to have pasta pre-training, or at least not 30 minutes pre-training, because that's a slow digesting. Unless you're a marathon runner, if you're going for a 45 to an hour a minute session, you're going to look to something simple.
You're going to even look to even other macros, because you're going to be looking, if you're looking at marathon runners, you look at more fat intake. Just due to
no, don't be confusing the people.
I'm not confusing the people. I'm just getting the same, like, that's what I mean. But yeah, just right. It's like there's a time and place where you can consume the slow and the fast carbohydrates and stuff like that. And like just Mike said, you're not gonna have a heavy carbohydrate meal right before a training session and stuff like that. Could upset stomach. All that stuff isn't going to make you feel easy. So you might have something that's going to be quick digestive, something that's going to give you energy.
Although we can talk, we can probably talk on this at a later episode in terms of digestive issues aren't always a thing, but it can be also dependent on what you're doing. If you're a runner, you're going to be more likely to have digestive issues. If you're someone that just goes in to do fixed resistance training, as an example, you might not have as much or as severe of an issue with digestion. But then it comes down to how the body will utilize that food that you put in. That's a big one, because obviously we're not looking at food just to eat food, because carbs is going to be our main energy provider to the body.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to look at that as, oh yeah, but you eat food for fuel. Yes, we do. Like, that's a sheer fact of the matter. And if you're being precise enough to go through a diet and everything, like, if you can have enough carbs over the space of the day and then be smart with your carbs, you can have a better training session, and then the overall goal of, say, losing weight can be a lot better because you've got more energy to go and train. And if you're training better, you're working harder. And if you're working harder, you burn more calories. And that also just has a rolling effect.
Yeah, because most times I know when people are, let's say, getting into shape and they slash their calories, usually carbohydrates is usually the thing that usually takes the most hit, because protein you want to generally keep it as high as possibly can, so you're not losing like muscle mass or anything regarding that. And fat, you're really there's barely that much changing. You just going to keep that just general for hormone take. So generally, carbohydrates is the thing that gets touched the most in changing balance. And there's a lot of people do swear about with, like having different intensity levels. You have different days of higher or lower carbohydrate intake. Personally, for myself, I'm a yes and no with that. I don't think, because you're not doing low or rest day training days, you're going to need less carbohydrates, because you're still going to be generally moving around. You're still going to have a high intake of meat. Obviously, higher carbohydrates also affects little things as well as like the exercise levels, like how much you fidget around, how much you want to move, mood and stuff like that. So that plays a part into it as well. But then on the flip side as well, if I want to play a game or football or something like that, or I know I've got training or something, I will particularly have more carbohydrates on the day before or prior to it, just to make sure that obviously that I'm fueled enough to obviously play that game. But there's different levels to it.
Yeah, because I do agree with you, but then it's obviously down to the conditions, like you said, with performance. But on the flip side of losing weight, on gaining weight, I will tend to cycle carbs a little bit for people, especially if they're in the very high realms that they struggle with digestion, just to give them a bit of a breather, because the amount of carbs that you'll be taking in, and something that me and Miles spoke about a little bit before the episode started, is in terms of obviously taking in all these carbs is going to have side effects on also how much water you hold.
Yeah.
And bloating for performance is not going to be one of the best things.
No.
Obviously, depending on your sport.
And going back to what Mike just said about carbohydrates turning into water intake, well, for every 1 gram of carbohydrates, it's about pretty much about 3 or 4 grams of water. So every time when people increase their carbohydrate intake, you put quite a bit of water weight on, and that's where people get the misconclusion of like, oh, I've put on a lot of weight, aka this must be carbohydrates. This is another reason why I think weight on its own is such a poor metric.
We can also then link it back to the start in terms of saying this is why people think carbs is the devil, because they just don't understand the logistics of what's going to happen if they do have carbs. If you know what's going to happen, or if you go through a certain phase of being like, yeah, no, I've been really good all week, and then you go and have beers and a pizza on the weekend when you wake up feeling sluggish as hell on a Sunday.
Yeah.
If you know why, you can look at what you're doing. You're like, well, I don't want to feel like this. So can I make some changes or choices? But it's also your understanding in terms of, it's not just you coming at it and being like, this is a side effect that I can't control or I don't understand. Because once you understand stuff, you then have a greater level of power over it.
Well, no,
and understand, knowledge is power, and power can be application. But no, it gets in terms of once you understand carbs a little bit more, especially, and you don't look at it for the drawbacks that it brings, and look at it for what it can actually physically do for you. Because that cycle from before, if performance increases and your energy output increases, would you not rather not feel as lethargic and shit as you normally do when you're on low carb? Because it can also affect brain capacity, brain function.
Yeah, cognitive. That's like, it's one of them. It can't be one of them things where we go, right, you need to eat this much amount. There's guidelines all over the place.
Oh,
it plays around like, yeah.
That's always the one that gets me. And it's like, you need to eat a fistful of this and 2 fingers worth of this.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like they always say, like, they always say, like, some people will say, like, if you're doing this many times sessions a day, if you've got this many games a day, or this, you should be eating X times your body weight in carbohydrates. And it's, while there's a truth with that, and some you, like Michael just said, if you are doing a lot of high intensity exercises, you are going to generally need a lot more carbohydrates. Then playing around with how much, like I said, you don't want to do exercise or, let's say, do anything when you've got a bloated stomach on you and stuff like that. It comes down to how much your body can tolerate, but at the same time as well, like how much you can consume. Because, you know, obviously, if you've got someone who's doing a load of activities, but you've got someone that doesn't like to eat a lot of food, then that's going to play a part into that as well.
Then that'll also play a part into when you would, if that person eats 2 meals a day, and that's like lunch and dinner, the implication I'm going to say to you is don't train at like 10 o'clock. I'm probably going to push it back either slightly or bring it back depending on the size of your meals. Because if someone is eating 2 meals a day and they're still putting on weight, that's then a surplus. So that means that there's an excessive, not obsessive, because it's excessive to the individual in question. Like, 2 completely different people will need 2 completely different carb levels, fat levels, protein levels. In the concept of what we're saying here, realistically, if you used to get the best out of your training, dependent on what your training is, I mean, I know, not independent, regardless of what your training is, being nutritionally, I don't want to say satisfied. That sounds very strange.
Complace. Technically, you've been happy with what you eat. That's what we're technically saying this stuff.
Yeah. Like the weird diet has got dye in it, so it's like the old Simpsons. I think we mentioned this on a podcast before, the old Simpsons thing.
Yeah.
When it the billboard.
Dye is just like die. But yeah, that's the thing is, and then obviously the biggest, the next thing is once, going back to what we were saying before, in the fact that everything has a law of diminishing returns, meaning that everything has a certain point before the benefits are no more. And while we are saying that, yes, you should be having more carbohydrates in your system, there's going to be a certain point where that high amount may be of a cost. So if we were trying to, let's say, try to bring this down to a simple term that you could easily apply to everyday living and stuff like that, you could, like, you could say something like 3 to 5 times your body weight in kilograms carbohydrates.
Yeah, I would roughly base carbs off the other two that I would give more priority to.
Yeah, so you use protein first and your fats, and you add the remaining of your carbohydrates, calories. Yeah, carbohydrates.
Because obviously, calories overall will be king. Then I'll go protein, fats, and carbs. Because depending on the individual, like women, I put a bit more priority on fat for women than I do for men, due to just hormone regulation, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's obviously down to the general consistency that I have, that men will have more calories overall than women.
Yeah. But it all depends on the cycle, doesn't it? Like there'll be certain periods where it's the same in the way as like someone who will do more activity than not. Like there'll be periods when they'll need more carbohydrates or more calories in the system because, like I said, their body's asking for more.
Anyway, like you look at an office worker and a postman, the manipulation of carbs I'm going to have between the two of them is completely different because the overall calorie position that they are starting with is also completely different.
Yeah.
But then it also comes down to the consistency of what you can get your hands on. You're going to look at me very strange for that one. You did that.
It just came to my head just then. But then it also comes with carbohydrates brings more than just performance-based aspects of positive aspects. Like having... It brings you pizza. Sorry, again?
It brings you pizza.
It brings you pizza. Yes. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Most things that are good in life, let's say food-wise, are carbohydrates. And as well as pizza being something fantastic, and it is always a big joy in my life, like you completely lost my forehead with that one. It brings you pizza.
I got you off with a funny one.
I was gonna say the fact of just like sleep. I was just like, look, having a carbohydrate meal before nap time can help bring you get yourself level of sleep. Like you've proper thrown me off with that whole pizza thing. So right, okay. So let's say tactics then. Obviously, there's a lot of tactics out there. There's low carbohydrate rest days, there's high carbohydrates training days, there's carb loading, there's probably some other there's even keto which is out there, which I don't suggest in the slightest. You need carbohydrates in your diet.
If you want to go for the anti-happiness approach, you would go zero carb. I've been on that approach. Well, not directly because of an intention, because of the shoot. Because when you get to more severe levels of like trying to get really, really lean, you will go through manipulations of carbs and fats. Protein pretty much stays the same. But you will manipulate certain stuff because we've said already about the water manipulation as well. We're not going to get into that as a concept because that's a bit more advanced. But I have been there. I have been on, I think I was on trace. So I think it was ended up about 20, 25 grams of carbs. You feel shit. Like, you just feel like you're dragging your feet all day. And it's just mental focus and mental clarity can be well off. Like, if you just don't want to be happy, remove caffeine and carbs from your life. Yeah, like it's not fun. So like for me, I think a minimal out of goal setting is 150 grams. Like minimum. That might seem a bit high. I don't know. That's just my perception of it.
I've looked at it. Why would you say that? I'm not questioning you. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
There's obviously there'll be people that'll be asking why.
I look at it not in terms of a weight loss aspect, because there's obviously you can only go so low on on calories before you're going to start having manipulations to vitamins and minerals. Obviously, I mean, carbs can still come from fruit and veg. We're not going to get into the fructose debate, but for the foods that can help provide you general overall health, if you start getting that low, you're going to start having adverse effects from vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So I'd set a minimum baseline on what macros you're going to get in, but my 150 limit comes in from cognitive function. So I think I spent a bit of time looking through cognitive work and carbohydrates, and 150 seems to be the point where if you start dropping below that point, that's when you start having a negative effect. Oh, not a negative effect in terms of like your brain just turns into like nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to say vegetable. But that's when you start getting like brain fog, and like you start getting a bit more forgetful. And like I said earlier, I've gone through the fact of going through that really advanced stage, which Zach can say, it's not something that you aim to stick by or stick with. It's something you go in, you come back out of because you're aiming to achieve a certain thing for a certain period of time. If you're working on the day-to-day and you work in an office and you're just literally just trying to lose weight, cognitive function is going to be quite important to you, regardless of your job.
Well, it helps with the dairies as well. That's what I mean. Like, going back to Mike's comment on pizza that threw me off. Like, you're going to enjoy world a lot more if you're able to have foods that you enjoy, and that's it. Like, there's just so much against not having carbohydrates in your system. It makes no sense not to. So I think to take this away, people need to start. But I mean, not just with carbohydrates, but with everything in the world. I need to start building a better relationship, or there needs to be a better understanding of what carbohydrates does for the system.
Yeah, because there has been stuff to look at low carbohydrates in terms of a neurochemical response. Like, I will come out and say that. I think it's GABA. I'm not going to get into the logistics of it. But there's been certain things, obviously, prove keto, or else people wouldn't do it. I think it works in terms of it gives you a better mental clarity response, or it just makes like you feel better for a certain period of time.
I think it's one of them where it's almost like a raincoat analogy, where if you've been in a room for so long and you've had so many layers on and you take it all off, you're going to feel it more often.
Yeah,
it's something like that. But that's
like you get through certain points of it. But
yeah, exactly. And that goes the exact same with vice versa. If you're eating at somewhat level and then you go a lot higher, you're going to feel that positive effect.
If you don't eat enough food, you will feel hungry, but when you start to lose weight, you're going to feel better. So you can have that as an adverse effect in terms of saying, like, regardless of whatever thing you cut out, if you're in a calorie deficit through carbs, through fats, through protein, and you lost weight, oh, I feel way good. Look at the scale's gone down. Yeah. That can happen through anything. But you just choose one because someone said that keto is king. and they swear by it because they've had the same effect, which could come from having a balanced macro split, is still eating carbs and doing that. But because no one's explained the simple calorie deficits to certain individuals, and they've just gone for one approach that's just generally just put them in a calorie deficit anyway, they run with that.
Yeah.
So they just be like, well,
the thing is, like, if you're on an easy win, cut carbohydrates out of the system. Yeah, great, you're gonna lose weight. But try ask me now in the long term, like, your training's gonna suck, you're gonna get injured, your sleep's not gonna be great, you're not gonna be in the mood, your probably friends and family will hate you, you're not gonna have any social life. Like, it's not sustainable. But if you want them scales to go down, be my guest.
it was like the boot camp.
This is the reason why, like, I don't track weight as much as I used to do. I used to be, like, personally myself, really religious about weighing myself every single day. And then all of a sudden, I think at the start of this year and all that, I just stopped myself from weighing. I don't think I've weighed myself once this year. Because I'm going
Before last week,
yeah.
I hadn't weighed myself since the shoot.
That's the thing, is like I'm using far better metrics. I'm using, right, am I feeling well? Am I eating well? Do I like the way that I look? Do my clothes fit better? Do I have enough energy? Am I enjoying the foods that I'm eating? The reason why these things are not popular because they're not real, they're not something that can be easily measured with. And when I say not easily measured with, they can be measured because you can use something like a tracker, where you can get like a gauge thing where you can put down, right, on a daily basis, I've been feeling like an 8 out of 10. Training's been this, I can be 9 out of 10, blah, 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 blah. But it's not something that's just easily visible where like a scale is. You see a number, it's down, therefore this result. But the problem with that is that one result there means about 6 or 7 different things. Like, weight is the relationship to your Earth's gravity to you. Simple as. It is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Like the water thing, that can come in.
Yeah.
Not in terms of like the ocean.
Yeah. And then there's other things. There's electrolytes and obviously carbohydrates, obviously then for your fruit and veg. Like, this is almost coming from going from a, right, this is only a purely carbohydrates podcast to we're talking about all food premise. You don't want to cut anything out. There's a reason why we have been consuming them for a long period of time. And that's why, like, they're easy accessible. If you're thinking about making cheap and easy meals, they're there for you. You're thinking of like rice, pasta, all that type of stuff. Like, just cutting them out of your diet is just going to make it hard for yourself, isn't it?
It's also, I think, tougher to then even get to a level of calories that's actually sufficient for an individual when you take out carbs because they are so easy. Like if I said to you,
Easter's just around the corner. I cannot wait to digest about 8 different eggs because I've been doing Lent. Like, I will be that person that'll have an Easter egg as a bowl, Cocoa Pops in it, and milk. I will be that person. Okay. Will I put some pounds on? Probably so, because I've not ate chocolate in a very long time. And that's the thing, is I do Lent for fun. I do with my granddad, but like, I don't advertise. I don't go, yeah, you should do it and stuff like that, because it puts a bad name on things that you give up. But I just do because it's something that we've done for a long period of time. I might even stop doing it because it doesn't make that much sense to do it that more these days. Because I only really started doing Lent because I was a fat, chubby kid and I enjoy treats a little bit too much. Story time.
Put me off guard with that one. No, it's people like restricting themselves too much, and it's like pulling on a rubber band, and then eventually it's just going to snap, and your few days of eating no carbs has then come to you just eating a pizza on the weekend. So scratch the itch in a sense. Understand that there's not good carbs and bad carbs.
No.
There's carbs for certain periods. Especially, like, I imagine most of the people that are watching this now are trying to lose weight, performance-based, etc., etc. So we can get into the manipulation of saying, we're not talking about a calorie deficit or a surplus at this point, but we're looking at giving you the best opportunity for having energy to then go and have a really good training session, which is going to help you towards your goal.
Yeah. I think
That's-
if people have been listening to us for 40 odd episodes and they're not got sick of our voices, I think they must be buying into somehow.
Yeah. We'll just timestamp this a little bit and be like, if you're 41 episodes in and you haven't picked up anything, stick with that one. Just go for that little 10-second analogy, little statement, because you restricting yourself on a day-to-day, it's just going to make it worse and worse, and it's going to mess around with your relationship with food. And then you go and do anything that's related. Like, could you imagine being like, yeah, sorry, I'm no carb, and then going to Italy? What you meant to eat?
Oh.
Pizza, pasta, ice cream. What would you do?
I don't know. Just
Lick the windows of the pizza
the
shop?
Tastes like glass.
Yeah, I can taste it.
Honestly, it's honestly like, oh god, it's gonna sound bad this, but it's almost like how vegans, if they smell a bacon butty, how do they not want a bacon butty? Like, how can people not want to have carbohydrates in the system? Now, obviously, there's exceptions. There's always exceptions, because there's people out there with, obviously, let's say, type 1, type 2 diabetes. There's stuff out there. So I'm not, obviously, when I'm saying stuff like that, if there's people out there with medical conditions, there are obviously going to be other aspects in there. But that could be a possible talk for another day and stuff like that. I've got family members who are diabetic, but I've got no rights talking about the logistics of diabetes. I just know it. I just know it because I've got family members who've got it.
Yeah.
I've got some interest into it. But that's what I'm saying. I'm just making sure at that point and stuff like that. Like, if you're listening to this and you've got a medical condition, seek proper advice first. But take everything that we've said into consideration. This is what all this podcast is all about. Like, there's no set in stone things. There's no yes and no's. It's all bit of spectrum. It's all our opinions. Like, take this away with a pinch of salt and get more information. That's what it is. What me and Mike trying to do with this podcast really is if you want to enhance your performance, if you want to be better in life, if you want to look better, if you want to feel better, if you want to all that, we just want to be somewhat apart. We don't want to be the definite answer. We don't want to take credit. We just want to make sure we help them. That's all it is.
Nothing progresses when you use the word restriction. Something's always going to suffer. Like, if you just completely take something away, there's always going to be something that's going to be a conflict after. So this is where you stay balanced and you get everything right. Obviously, if you would like to know more information, please contact Mike and Myles personally over the podcast. No, but no, it's one of them where it's like, you can't just look at something on the internet, and if you tapped in carbs now, it'd be like, oh, carbs are the devil. Like, no, mate.
Yeah.
But
you'll see a lot of information like saying insulin spiking causes fat intake, and
whoever can shout the loudest gets the most views. Doesn't mean they're right.
If I went on that now, I think I go on something else now. If I go on the internet now and type in Carbohydrates.
Should we just get you two of us? I'll swap you over to my other screen. I'll get Google up. Carbs. Oh, no, carbohydrates.
So I type in carbs. If I type carbs here we go. Top ones. Carbs are carbs good for you? Are carbs the enemy? Are carbs sugar? Are carbs bad? Are carbs bad for you? Are carbs protein sparing? Yes, they are. What are carbs made of? Like, it's out there. A lot of people, there's a lot of people not knowing about basic nutrition. What are you looking at? What have you got?
I type should you eat carbs? Should we eat carbs? And then I scroll down, and then one said, should you pop a blister?
What?
I was like, the first two are shoulds, and then the rest are shoulder, because shoulder.
That's something that I would make a mistake of. But yes, the simple answer to the question on everyone's lips: are carbs the devil? No, they are not. They are delicious things that give us performance or energy to help with performance. Anything to add on that, Michael?
Well, I typed devil food, and there's a cake by Paul Hollywood.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, right, if you guys have enjoyed this episode, make sure you give a like. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out, and especially share it as well. If you have any question about the topic that me and Michael have spoke about today, you can message us directly on our social media, or obviously through the platform that you're using right now. But right, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of 2PT's One Podcast. We'll see you all in the next one. We all hope you have a lovely Easter and eat a ton of Easter eggs. And on that note, peace out.
Peace.